Hi Blake, my name is Karina Spinola and I'm a videographer here at the Howard Thurman Center. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and the premise of your TED Talk?
Yes, I'm so happy to talk to you too, Karina. Thank you. My name's Blake Hanrahan, and I'm a recent graduate from BU's Question School of Business. I was business admin and management and a marketing concentrator. And kind of the way that I like to pitch myself is theater kid turned strategist. I grew up in the theater world. I was a performer, always enthralled by the prospect of storytelling and communicating a story and a vision to an audience and having them kind of leave the room maybe a little bit changed than how they entered, which is a little bit differing from maybe the traditional format of somebody who would pursue a business degree or something that's a little bit more corporate seeming. So, the premise of my talk is where you don't belong is where you begin. And it's all about intentionally placing yourself in environments or rooms where maybe you don't fit that expectation or that norm, and ultimately how that could be beneficial for your success and actually help you financially, career wise, all kind of the benefits that come from really tapping into your inner authenticity. And I believe that you find that authenticity by entering spaces where you don't necessarily fit that mold. So that's kind of the gist of my talk. And yeah, I think it kind of relates to the career path I've had so far. I'm fortunate enough to be working part-time right now for Universal Music Group and brand partnerships, and that's all about storytelling and community as well. So that's the gist of my talk and my career and professional trajectory thus far.
Thank you for saying that. I read your talk and I loved it, and I feel like you touched on a lot of what just we as humans experience, where sometimes you'll enter a space and you feel like you have to put on this act or perform in a certain way because that's what society tells you to do. I was wondering if you could kind of explain the difference between what you're talking about in your talk about discomfort versus self-abandonment. Could you speak more about that point?
Yeah, I think that it's really easy to enter a space where you don't, or a room where you don't fit that mold. And for your safety, you kind of conform a little bit. And it's like, all right, let me just play into this archetype that already exists because that's safe. Like I'm going to, it's biological. Like that's going to make me not be viewed as like a foe or different or enemy from this group. So you could alter yourself and perform and probably be fine. Like you would initially, you'd feel a lot more comfortable, I feel. But my belief is that when you alter yourself to fit the room or the typical mold that exists, there's a risk of self-abandoning yourself and not being internally aligned with your values and the principles that you hold close to your core. And ultimately, even though kind of subscribing to the norm might provide you peace and soothe you in that exact moment and feel safe, it's actually really detrimental for somebody that's looking to optimize their success and their potential in the grand scheme. So self-abandonment might soothe you temporarily, but I think ultimately it's the ultimate enemy. It erases your authenticity, and you're not going to achieve the fruitful results you could if you lead as an authentic leader.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. More to that discomfort point, what do you think seeking discomfort looks like as an everyday for a typical student at BU or a typical college student? How do you think that students should be leading with themselves in college in this new space? Obviously, before entering the professional world, what do you think they can do to prepare for that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like it starts very little
Mhm.
every single day. In college, I've always been a fan of like at Splash at BU, we have all the tables that I've set up. Like put your name on some, it could be as tiny as putting your name on a list for a club that maybe you feel like I just want to see what this is like. I've never experimented with something like this. Like I have friends who have tried improv club and they have like no history in improv at all, but that's something that pushes you like a little bit out of your comfort zone. The stakes aren't that large. Nothing disastrous will occur if you don't ultimately succeed when you show up to the meeting. But I think little moments like that are kind of necessary for challenging yourself. And it doesn't need to be a large scale, let me uproot my life and move across the country tomorrow. It doesn't have to be that. It's just like do something every single day. Maybe if you like somebody's hat at the Starbucks, like tell them, oh, I think you look good. It might make you a little nervous to like socially take that risk, but little things like that add up over time, I really believe.
Yeah, and I know in your talk specifically you gave an example about being on the field and you just feeling like, okay, like my parents are proud of me, but it's not aligning with my true self. Are there any
Yeah.
other examples that you where you felt that exact same way maybe in your adult life where you're like, okay, I need to be more true to myself and I don't want to live that experience again, so I'm going to continue on with like everything you've spoken about in your talk.
Totally. I think even just in Questrom, like being a business student, it was already a push for me. And then when you go down the path of deciding what your concentration was, like I had a lot of friends who were really ambitious and driven to pursue finance concentrations because they're the ones that, are going to make a lot of money outside of school when they first enter the corporate world. And I'd be in some of those classes, and even though I didn't feel like an overwhelming pressure, I'd be in some of those rooms and I'd be like, all right, like maybe I should subscribe to that concentration. Maybe that's going to be advantageous for my career. But ultimately, I pursued kind of the creative route and I took a marketing lane because it just felt like it was in alignment with what I want to do professionally and my kind of past in theater. So I would say that that was an example of kind of choosing not to subscribe to the room that I've encountered at BU.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you keep saying like it's a choice. Like you're the one that's actively playing a role in the decisions that you're making, but also how you decide to continue moving forward if you are feeling that kind of self-abandonment that you said.
Yeah.
Also, I was just wondering, with this talk, what do you hope that others can get out of it, or what even inspired you to say, okay, this is like a platform that I feel like is important to me that I think would reach people?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest. I was a little hesitant at the start because I feel like a lot of what I have to say is really rooted in personal experience. And I think TED, of course, is like an organization where you want to kind of have your research and like some backings that are, numerical and data driven and whatnot. So I was a little bit hesitant, but I think that the gut inkling that I had to want to share this is really just rooted in it's kind of like the story of my life. I really feel like theater kid to business school, and that I started like on the football field, so it was football field to theater kid to business school. Like there were all kind of these archetypes where the first thing didn't match the thing that came, and I felt like that's kind of been I just attributed that to the reason that I've had like so much success. Like I really feel like my asset in the business classroom and a corporate environment is because of having a theatrical background and really leveraging that. So I really felt like I felt it was important to share this platform just because it feels like the story of my life. It's kind of like how it's been like my North Star, kind of like seeking
Mhm.
discomfort. It's everything that I've tried to practice in my day-to-day life. And I've been fortunate to have, a family and parents that have like instilled those values in me. So I think it's kind of been part of my 22 years. And I think leaving BU, I wanted that to be kind of the capstone thing I could share and the impression I could leave. So yeah, it's really rooted in my story, truthfully.
Yeah, and I love how you're continuing to stay true to yourself and you are saying, I was a theater kid, I went to business school and everything, but it's still just who I am, even if those things may not have been something that people saw could go together. I was
Yeah.
wondering if you think that continuing to seek discomfort and being authentic, do you think that it has gotten easier over time to do, or do you think it's constantly something that's always a little bit challenging?
I think it becomes easier to do over time. My talk kind of lays out like three principles about seeking discomfort, mastering alignment, and then embracing authenticity. And once you get to that point of point three, which I think I'm still working to get to that final point of like, it's very hard to not hear any of the noise or the static from outside. But I do think that those little actions, like, you ask, what can you do every day at BU? I think that those little things compound over time really help you reach ultimately point three at the end of your life, like embrace authenticity. It's not even an option. You just operate the way that you operate because you've already exposed yourself to the discomfort so much. So I do think and I believe and I hope and I feel from what I've experienced so far that it does get easier. But I do think it's probably like a lifelong journey and something you got to work at every single day. I don't think there's anyone on the planet that's completely discounting the external noise and opinions of other people. But yeah, I think you're right. I think over time it does you become like so authentic that it's like even if I wanted to conform, like it's not even an option. Like this is me. There's no option. So I think it's gotten easier.
That's great. And I'm glad to hear that too, because again, this is something that we're all going through and obviously entering into, later adulthood and everything. These are things that we're gonna have to consistently be thinking about, especially as we enter spaces where things are new, like you said, trying different things and just seeing, maybe this isn't something that I initially saw myself doing, but I kind of like it. And it's because I put
Totally.
myself out there. Well, how do you feel people will resonate with this talk? Do you think that you've also had like friends where you've all kind of related on this issue and you're like, you know what? No, like I have to put myself first. How do you feel like your environment plays a role in you feeling comfortable to put yourself first?
Um, yeah, I think that you really have to seek out spaces where like people are driven to succeed by like who they are, whether that's like an affinity group on campus or just a group of really like driven people. I was fortunate enough to be part of a professional fraternity during my time at BU, and I felt like everybody had a really clear vision for what they wanted to do. And we had, I mean, I was in it, and I was like a kid that wanted to be in music, and like I had a theater background, so I already kind of pivoted from the typical formula, but I was surrounded, you're right, by a lot of people that were like, this is my vision. I'm full throttle committing to it. Like, I can't imagine a world in which I am not in this boardroom or I'm not pursuing this artistic avenue. It differed depending on what the professional interest of that person was. But yeah, I think that the people you surround yourself with, if they are like authentic, it's a lot easier for you to lead with authenticity. And I think the talk relates to everybody. I begin the talk by kind of like an exercise asking people to think about maybe a standard that exists in their environment and like a norm that they felt the pressure to meet, because that exists for everyone, men, women, like no matter what the construct is, like there's a norm and there's stereotypes and there's things you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
So I think that the talk really, even though I relate to the topics of like masculinity and the football turning into the theater and then theater kid leveraging itself to like a corporate environment, even though that's my story, that's just the stereotypes and the roles and constructs that worked for me. But I really hope everybody can leave and be like, I understand how this applies to the norms that I've been expected to conform to.
Exactly. And how do you feel like society, or what things do you think society, whether that's like social media or the corporate world, can do to ensure that people are comfortable making such decisions?
Ugh, it's hard, but I guess just opening the conversation, like I hope that I think that that's the only way to get the ball rolling. Like hopefully I could get up there and talk about it, and somebody sees how, the talk applies to their life. Maybe it's not about masculinity, but maybe it's, something with gender or race that they felt, and they could apply that to their own experience in life. So I hope that just getting the conversation rolling, but it's hard because there are structures in place that I don't think necessarily maybe financially reward like authenticity. It's like, well, these are the three types of jobs that post grad, like you do the schooling and you make a lot of money. So it's like, how's the authenticity conversation come in there when it's like, look at the numerics and the data. Like there are paths in which if you do this, even if it's not true to your inner core, you're kind of guaranteed and set up for success, at least financially. So I think that I don't think it's fully there societally, but I think that just getting the conversation rolling is the first step. I hope.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for speaking about your talk. I feel like it's very insightful, and I feel like I definitely resonated with it, and I know a lot of people are going to enjoy your talk and take something away from it. So, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Karina.